And a very good morning to you. Big question, who will become South Africa's next Auditor-General? I mean, we're seeing and listening to some of the questions that are being posed here by the panel. Corruption, huge question that continues to be asked in different ways when it comes to the sort of characteristics that an Auditor-General should embody, the ethical coding, as well as the role of that office.
Most certainly important. I think, over the years we've seen a push to have such interviews be made public because of how Chapter 9 institutions, by virtue, of course, of their constitutional mandate, but of course the role that they've played in ensuring that government is held to account. And that's mainly been the line of questioning that we've seen coming from the 11-member committee in Parliament today, made up of those MPs, to ask how the Auditor-General's office will ensure that they remain independent, such as the other Chapter 9 institutions. And we heard Mr. Hoosain also, making reference to the Public Protector's Office and the role that the PP's office has played in ensuring that government is held to account. He's spoken about, the fact that there needs to be better transparency. And what he means by that is, that there's a constant communication about the kinds of investigations that they're doing. But also, he's raised an issue with the fact that even when they do release the Auditor-General results, all they are mandated to do as far as the Public Audit Act in its current form is to just say whether or not a municipality has received a clean audit. And he's saying, as professionals, they should at least be allowed to give comments on how a particular municipality would have reached that state, and give their comments on how the situation can be better remedied. We do know that the AG's office does do that, but he believes more could be done to improve in this regard.
His qualifications and the sort of work experience he has is a really imperative factor should he get the job. The role that he spoke about his experience in the field of auditing, years of experience. He spoke about the sort of beliefs that he has. He spoke about accountability, transparency, being really important aspects of this job. When it comes to just breaking down what is required from an Auditor-General, what does that comprise of?
Well, according to him, he says it's lots of consultation, especially with his colleagues, and also ensuring that they remain transparent throughout every single step of the way when they do those audits. I mean, we know that the Auditor-General's office has been very crucial, and Kimi Makwetu's office leadership now in terms of the reports he's released have been largely relied upon by provincial governments and local governments to actually be able to act against corrupt officials. And we've seen over the years how much corruption has been rampant, particularly in municipalities. I mean, for an example, in KwaZulu-Natal, out of all the 54 municipalities, only one received a clean audit. And so it's such results and such, the boosting that the Auditor-General's office has received over the years through the amendment of that Public Audit Act that has also been able to give that particular Chapter 9 institution a bit more meat to be able to deal with corruption. So in terms of the characteristics and the values that an Auditor-General needs, yes, it's experience, but we've also just heard Mr. Hoosain speaking about the fact that you also do need a diverse workforce to be able to tackle the issues. He was asked again about whether or not during his tenure within the Western Cape Treasury, whether he's come across any particular instance of corruption. And I would say he was a bit careful in how he responded to that, but basically saying, the integrity of the office must always be maintained, and that would be done in probably in the easiest way by always being transparent through everything that they do.
And as he expanded on his characteristics as a leader, he said that he is an inclusive leader, which has the style of being persuasive and speaking to people one at a time to influence them. And he also spoke about his moral bone, saying that he was brought up well by parents who believed in being honest and truthful. Being honest and truthful is a huge part of this job.
Most certainly, and I think this is why, like I was touching on earlier, such interviews which previously either the public weren't interested in or they weren't necessarily made open to the public for viewing. Now we see that such interviews actually become a part of the news agenda because people want to know what kind of integrity capacity a person such as the Auditor-General has, and whether or not they'll be able, through difficult times, in instances where there will be, possible attempts for political interference, what kind of values anchor you for you to be able to ensure that that office is actually, protected from such instances, especially because it's a Chapter 9 institution. At all material times, it may be independent, but in Paul, we know an institution is only as good as the people who work in it.
Absolutely. And very lastly, Ziyanda, before we let you go, we know that Parliament is interviewing these 8 candidates. There is a woman amongst the candidates that are being interviewed. What would the allocation and appointment of a woman mean for South Africa's history?
Well, I mean, we know that in the first instance, one of the women who's going to be interviewed later this afternoon is Tsakani Maluleke. She is the current Deputy Auditor-General, but she's also the first woman to hold that position in the 107 years of the Auditor-General's existence. And so she has been tipped to actually take over as the Auditor-General. But of course, we know in terms of the process, it's ultimately the President that will make that decision after this parliamentary process, after reviewing their CVs. And of course, we know that the tenure of the current Auditor-General, Kimi Makwetu, ends in November.